Hello, you are not on the wrong video. There is not a video inside your video. Well, I guess there technically is a video inside your video right now.
Videoception.
But, yeah, it's Vidception. You are tuned in to the ThunderQuack Patreon Roundtable for April. It's still April, right? We're safe. It's still April.
Barely still April.
We're going to talk about The Force Awakens and Star Wars Celebration tonight. And to do that, I have brought in two experts on the subject, along with myself. We have got Kyle Avery of Star Wars The Saga Continues. Say hi, Kyle.
Hello, everybody.
And we have got Jason Hunt of The Wampa's Lair and soon coming to ThunderQuack Podcast Network, Talking Time Lords. Say hi, Jason.
Say hi, Jason. Oh, wait.
There you go. Awesome. So we are going to talk The Force Awakens tonight.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to do so. So if you are currently watching live, you can tweet at us. It's at ThunderQuack. What is it? I always forget what it is. It's ThunderQuack Net, right? I think it's ThunderQuack.
Sounds right.
Maybe it's ThunderQuack Pod. What is it? ThunderQuackNet. It's ThunderQuack.
Yeah, sounds about right. Okay.
So at ThunderQuackNet, and you can also comment right there on YouTube, and I will do my best to keep my eyes on that chat. Should already be a couple of comments in there for me. So everybody else who wants to comment, feel free to comment, and I will be reading those, and we'll be checking that out. But let's get right into it. You guys saw it right there at the beginning of the video. We got the Force Awakens trailer all queued up for you guys. So we're actually just going to play the trailer. You won't have any audio because we're just going to talk over it. So let me just get that set up once again. It takes a second to switch it over. There we go, and we should be good there. And here we go. So, guys, we're just going to talk right over this and break it down frame by frame. This is kind of like, if you're familiar with IGN, I'm ripping off their Rewind Theater, and we're gonna do what they do. Maybe a little bit less technical though. There's the new Lucasfilm logo with the fanfare. I mean, the logo hasn't changed, but it's just that little bit of extra.
Desert landscape, crashed X-wing,
and holy crap, there's a Star Destroyer.
What is that thing? That's a Star Destroyer.
So let's talk about. I'm gonna freeze it right there. Let's talk a little bit about this moment at Star Wars Celebration.
It's a beautiful frame, I just have to say.
It is. Yeah. You know what? The great thing about this trailer is that it doesn't matter where you freeze frame it. It doesn't matter where you stop. It's always a great frame, unless you stop on one of the black ones, because it's just nothingness. But let's talk about Star Wars Celebration a little bit, and let's talk about. We were on the digital stage, which was not the main theater that the Force Awakens panel was on, which was the Celebration stage, but it was the secondary stage. It was the biggest of the simulcast rooms, and I don't know how many people. Do you guys remember how many people it fit?
I heard somebody say 2,100. I don't know if that was confirmed, but somewhere around 2,000, I think.
That sounds about right.
Okay. So we were in that room, and it was basically full. There's a little bit of room in the back because of maybe, let's not call it poor organizing, but maybe just poor, maybe a little bit of a first day jitters. But basically a full house. The Celebration stage was definitely a full house, and they kind of saved the teaser towards the end of the panel, and man, when this starts up, you've got that music. It's the sort of the Force theme, and as it panned, I don't know about you guys, but I distinctly remember it just sort of panning across, and you just thinking that that's another sand dune until you see that first ridge. I'm going to point at it with my pointer here. Hopefully everybody at home can see that. this ridge right here, right? You start to see that, and then all of a sudden it all starts to come together. And then once the bridge pops out, you're like, holy smokes, that is a Star Destroyer. And I think we all lost it, right?
Yeah, I remember the energy in the room was already very high because we were seeing the new trailer.
Yeah.
But it had gotten sort of like that hushed energy as the trailer started. But as the Star Destroyer got to be more and more revealed and more people figured out what it was, you could just feel the energy ramp up, and you know, some people were starting to cheer, and it was pretty quite awesome. That was not a very well constructed sentence, but you get the
No, it was definitely awesome. And I mean, one of the things that I've done since Celebration, I mean, I've watched this trailer countless times, obviously, but it's actually really fun to go back and watch, not like the official trailer from the Star Wars page, but a couple of like the bootleg videos that people who were in the room on the Celebration main stage or whatever, and they filmed the trailer like off their phones when they were showing it in there for the first time. So you can still see the trailer in kind of good quality, but you also hear the reaction of everybody in the room at all the cool parts. And yeah, like you said, Jason, like it starts off where everybody's real quiet, and you can like audibly hear the moment where everybody in the room realizes, you know, just what you were saying, Mike, like, holy crap, that's a Star Destroyer. Yeah. So you know, when it gets about like halfway into frame, just everybody starts cheering, and man, yeah, I mean, what an awesome way just to kick off the trailer.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal start to the trailer, just perfect. I'll just point right here at the X-wing down here in the corner. It wasn't until later that day, maybe even it was that night when we were watching it on the TV for the first time. It might have been at some point we were watching it on, we were watching it on various devices throughout the first day of the convention. But definitely once we kind of got back to the house and started to break it down right there that night, we started talking about this X-wing, and so it's very obvious, and they kind of talked about it a little bit in the trailer, that or in the panel, that this is the scene of a battle. And sort of like the aftermath many years ago, because obviously this is an old T-65.
Yep.
Not one of the new T-70 models that we're going to see a little bit later in the teaser, but one of the T-65s, and this is your standard Imperial Star Destroyer. And this planet is actually not Tatooine. We're just going to continue here. This is actually the planet Jakku, which was a really cool reveal. I'm excited for one that it is not Tatooine. So then we start to get the voiceover, right? And this is when the voiceover comes in of Luke. At first, we thought it was from Return of the Jedi, that it was Luke talking to Leia when he reveals. Spoilers for anybody who hasn't finished the Star Wars saga, but I don't know why you're watching this. But when he's revealing to Leia that she's his sister, and he says, the Force is strong in my family. My father has it, which is what he says over this burnt out. This is obviously Vader's helmet from Endor that was burned on the funeral pyre that we see at the end of Return of the Jedi, and it has this great quality to it because it looks like there's a skull in there.
Yeah, I was about to say.
This half looks like Vader. This half looks like a skull.
Yeah, which is really creepy, but also cool in a way too. That it's just like, wait, is that just the other half of the mask that kind of just got burned a little more than the other side did, or are we actually seeing like the skull of Anakin Skywalker in there?
Yeah. So, like, the way that I interpret this is that over here, especially right here in this eye socket and in this area, the mask has melted and actually, like, the flesh has burned away, and this has sort of, like, started to melt into the bone, right?
Yeah.
And especially this part where the vent, the front of the vent, has sort of broken into pieces. It makes this look like teeth. And so you really get the skull look. I mean, Vader's helmet was always meant to evoke that, right? It was supposed to be something between sort of a traditional samurai helmet with a skull, and kind of, if you look at those original Ralph McQuarrie paintings, and for those who've been lucky enough to see the first 2 episodes of Star Wars Rebels for season 2, it's got that wolf-like quality to it, where it's almost, this area here is almost like a snout. So it kind of looks very predatory, which never really came across as much in the actual movie version of the mask, but that was kind of always the original intent. And so you start to see some of that in this. So this is a great first image after the Star Destroyer and everything, sort of our first image of a character, to especially our first image of a classic character.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was kind of surprised that they went there, because I mean, I don't know about you guys, like, following all the rumors and stuff, but I know for me and Tim on our podcast, like, we've heard tons of rumors and stuff that, you know, some character in this movie was going to have Vader's old, you know, have his mask or something like that. But again, you know, never thought they'd show it like this early in the trailer. So we're sitting there watching it for the first time. I'm like, oh, whoa! So it is in the movie, and like there it is right there.
Yeah.
But I mean, just such a cool, and like, is it kind of a little bit creepy and chilling, but at the same time, you know, it's a great throwback to that character too.
Yeah, but it's you know, I mean, when those rumors were sort of swirling around, it sounded like somebody was going to be wearing Vader's outfit, right? That there would be somebody masquerading as Vader. But I think what's clear here is, if you look here at the sides, it's more of a, like, this is on like a dais or a pedestal.
Oh yeah,
sort
definitely.
of. I think there's a really meta element to The Force Awakens, and they haven't talked about it yet, but I think it's there. And that's that this First Order, that they're sort of Sith enthusiasts, let's call them, Sith fanboys, and they're collecting things. They're collecting pieces of in particular, Imperial and Sith sort of relics. And this helmet is a perfect example of that. So let's... Jason, you got anything else to say, or we can continue?
It was just a little surprising to see it. Obviously, Darth Vader is probably one of the most marketable characters in Star Wars, so I suppose I shouldn't be too surprised. But I almost... They've been talking about wanting to set up, you know, the new characters, and, you know, I was a little surprised to see that they were going to even have even more ties back to the previous movies with Darth Vader. I knew we were going to have Han, Luke, and Leia, you know, sort of passing the torch, but to have another tie back to the old movies with Vader surprised me a little bit, because they're, you know, it's a new generation of heroes and that sort of thing. I'm not complaining, I'm just surprised, you know, because this is cooler than anything I thought could happen. And I've heard some of the rumors about Vader's, you know, helmet, or people pretending to be Vader or whatever, although I've tried to stay away from as many of those as possible, especially now that we're getting actual trailers. I'm staying away from basically all rumors and spoilers possible. We'll see how well that works, ultimately, but that's the plan.
Cool. Well, let's continue here. So this is, he says, my father has it, and then he says, Luke's saying, I have it, and here we have R2-D2. We don't know what planet this is. Could be Jakku, it could be Tatooine, it could be a lot of different places. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Geonosis. But I think the important thing is looking at Luke's hand here. And this is his mechanical hand, obviously, which he's had since the end of Empire Strikes Back, but in Return of the Jedi and Empire, we see it's covered in synthetic flesh, right? As they call it in the expanded universe, synth flesh. So here he's just sort of wearing it bare. You can see the whole mechanical hand, and my feeling on this is that since the events of Return of the Jedi, and since Luke, you know, sort of in the moment that he cuts Vader's hand off, and sort of has that brief sort of dalliance with the dark side, and then pulls himself back from it, and you know, throws his lightsaber to the ground and says, you know, I am a Jedi like my father before me. Before that moment, he looks at his hand and he looks back at Vader's, you know, robotic stump of an arm, and he starts to see the similarity, right? And obviously the path that his father went down that he's trying to avoid. So I think that what you've got here is an outward example of his sort of new perspective post Return of the Jedi, and that is that he wears this as sort of a reminder to never go down that path again, right? To always be wary of the dark side, and this is his constant reminder of how close he came to falling, and to making the same mistakes that his father did, and so yeah, it's kind of that constant reminder, and I think that's really cool. Like that's how I'm interpreting this. It may just be there to look cool, but somehow I doubt that. What do you guys think about this first look at what we suspect is Luke Skywalker? I think we're pretty right in suspecting that, but what we suspect is not confirmed.
Well, with everything else that we've gotten as far as with the voiceover and stuff, obviously my father has it, I have it, and then the upcoming my sister has it. I think it's a pretty safe bet to say this is Luke. Obviously it's not entirely confirmed, and they're not really telling us. But just seeing who's sitting there with R2 in the middle of nowhere, I mean, who else takes R2-D2 to the middle of nowhere? In this time period, it's got to be Luke. The new hand looks cool. I didn't think that deeply about why he's wearing it that way now, as you did, Mike. But here I just thought the synth flesh was itchy or something.
Well, I didn't really think that deeply about it either. But then just listening to you talk about it, Mike, I think it. You could be onto something there, but I think also maybe he could even be wearing it almost as a little bit of like a tribute and a reminder to his father in a way. I mean, Obi-Wan says about Vader, he's more machine now than man, twisted and evil. But then, of course, Luke sees at the end of the day that just because Vader has turned to the dark side and he's got all this machinery on him, that he still ended up, turning back to the light side and being a hero at the end of the day. And so maybe that's sort of his way of saying, like, yeah, I'm part machine too, like my father was, and I don't need to hide it because it doesn't necessarily mean I'm a big scary cyborg villain. Like, there was still good inside of him, and I'm still plenty good with a robotic hand. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a couple different ways that this could end up going, and it'll be interesting. I think it'll be really interesting to see how Luke's character has evolved since Return of the Jedi. The rumor is that he's sort of gone to ground and he's kind of in hiding, and living a bit of a hermit's life, kind of like Obi-Wan did. And I think that this image kind of it definitely evokes that. So I think some of these sort of theories, spoilers, rumors have started to be confirmed by virtue of just sort of like these quick elements that we've gotten to see. But let's move forward to the next image, and this is where he says, "My sister has it," and there it is. That is Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber, last seen in The Empire Strikes Back, being wielded by Luke Skywalker in his fight against Darth Vader. And as we were talking about that severed hand, both that hand and this lightsaber fell down into the central core of Cloud City. So just how someone has managed to get their hands on it, we don't quite know, and everybody suspects that this is Leia that's being handed the lightsaber. So my guess is that Leia doesn't even know where Luke is, and that there's been, sort of a search for Luke Skywalker, and they haven't found Luke, but they've recovered this. Someone has managed to recover this artifact. In the expanded universe, Vader has someone retrieve the lightsaber and the hand as well, and presents them both to the Emperor. And from that hand, This is in the Thrawn trilogy, the Timothy Zahn books, the first real installment of the expanded universe, the now defunct expanded universe. That hand is used to clone Luke Skywalker and create Luke Skywalker, which is, that shows you just how clever a guy Timothy Zahn is. Unpopular opinion time, and I'm sure you guys probably don't necessarily agree with me on that, but my opinion that Timothy Zahn not always cracked up to be, Luke Skywalker not exactly clever. But I don't know, I feel like we could see some of that story, some of those elements possibly coming back. So the fact that Luke's lightsaber, his lightsaber that was given to him by Obi-Wan, that was previously owned by Anakin Skywalker, that this could indicate that maybe some of the other characters that we're going to see are not everything we think they are. Maybe they're a little bit familiar from the expanded universe. We have heard. I mean, Dave Filoni has definitely talked about trying to use the expanded universe wherever he can, and I remember J.J. Abrams, as well as Simon Kinberg and Michael Arndt and others saying that, just because the expanded universe is gone, it doesn't mean that they can't pull ideas or elements, and some things may show up, but they might not be the same as you remember them. So I think that there's a good possibility that this could actually tie into a story that's familiar but completely new. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Whose hand is this? The hand holding the lightsaber.
Rey.
You guys?
It's got to be Rey.
No, it's definitely not Rey, because if you actually freeze frame the beginning of this shot, you can see for like just a brief couple of frames, you can see that that's an alien character because you see a little bit of the face frame.
Oh, look over here!
I never noticed that.
Let's see if I can get an even better one of that. Whoops. I full screened it. Apparently double-clicking full screens a video. What a fantastic functionality, YouTube, but not helpful for me in this moment. I had a good freeze frame there, and then I went past it. Yeah, that is definitely not a human.
That is not a human at all.
Interesting. Good catch, Kyle. Good catch.
Thank you.
Not Rey.
This could be our first look at Andy Serkis.
I think that's doubtful. I think that we see Andy Serkis later, and I've said since that first trailer that I don't think Andy Serkis is playing a motion captured character. I think that J.J. Abrams is actually Joss Whedon will be the first one to recognize the fact that Andy Serkis is not just an incredible motion capture artist, but that he is just a fantastic actor. Because we're going to see Andy Serkis in Avengers: Age of Ultron at the end of this week. So,
well, here's my issue with that, though. I mean, I totally agree with you that he is a really good actor and that he shouldn't just be limited to motion capture roles. But then, on the flip side of the coin, it's like because he's such a good motion capture actor, it's like if they are going to have a character in here, and I don't think this is him. We've actually heard some rumors that Lupita Nyong'o might be playing some sort of motion capture CGI alien character, so maybe that's her. But it's like if you're gonna have a male alien character like that, that's gonna require a lot of motion capture work and stuff like that. Who better to go to than Andy Serkis? So it's not like that's all he can do, but it's just in that one category, he's obviously like at the top of his craft. So
we do know his motion capture company is working on The Force Awakens. So
so I mean, we know there'll be some motion capture characters in there somewhere, whether or not it's him, but I think that's pretty much a given at this point.
Okay. I mean, I think it's I think it's the easy thing to say that, like, well, he's a motion capture expert and it's Star Wars, so let's bring him in for that. I do think that there will be makeup appliances. I think that he'll be like an Emperor type character. And that he might have an altered appearance, but I just don't think that he's going to be motion captured, because I don't think that there are going to be too many motion captured characters in this. I think as much as possible is going to be practical. There might be some computer enhanced characters, but like this character, for instance, could be computer enhanced, like the face could be manipulated, but obviously this is just a bare arm, right? I mean, it's got some makeup coloring on it.
Yeah.
Maybe more of like an orange tone to the skin, but I would be surprised if there are fully CG if there are too many fully CG characters, because I think that J.J. Abrams wants to avoid that. But let's talk a little bit more about this possibly being Princess Leia. I mean, I think that's a pretty safe bet that this is Leia.
Oh yeah.
I think again, just by the way that Luke is sort of staging it with the dialogue. One other thing I did want to go back to too, in reference to the lightsaber itself, and you were talking about how it, how they could have gotten it out of Cloud City, how somebody ended up with it here.
Yeah.
And I think this is just kind of me throwing out a crazy theory here, but I'm like, one possibility I think might also have to do something with the planet Jakku. And I know you said you like that it's not Tatooine, and I kind of have mixed feelings on that, because on the one hand, I do like that they're kind of mixing it up a little bit, and they're not having to have every Star Wars movie start on Tatooine. But at the same time, it looks so freaking much like Tatooine. Like seeing the shot in the couple shots that we saw in the first teaser trailer. I mean, Tim and I were both like 100% convinced that planet was Tatooine, and we heard rumors that it wasn't. We're like, that can't possibly be true. And so then when they said it's Jakku, I'm like, oh, okay, cool, like new planet, but why does it look so similar? And obviously they're trying to evoke that classic trilogy feel and everything, but I'm wondering maybe if Jakku, maybe they'll reference it being like in the I Know It system, which is where we know Bespin is, like maybe it's somewhere closer, just so that it kind of makes sense that the lightsaber could have got from point A to point B, and that it didn't just like drift through space halfway across the galaxy to Tatooine or something like that. So
I don't think that it will have drifted through space. I think that it was recovered by the Empire, that Vader recovered it, and that it is. I think it's part of this whole First Order, them like sort of snapping up all of these Jedi and Sith relics that they can find. So in their sort of sacking of Coruscant at whatever point, or even if it was part of the Imperial Remnant, and the Imperial Remnant had possession of this along with Luke's hand, who knows? They in the fallout of one of the battles, or possibly on that Star Destroyer or another Star Destroyer that we saw on Jakku, that's where the lightsaber was. So I think it's really gonna tie into this whole idea that there are these Sith fanatics, these Sith cultists, and that they're worshiping the Sith and the Jedi, and trying to emulate them. We can talk about that a little bit more when we get to Kylo Ren, because we have a little bit of extra information now, just by virtue of the fact that we saw so much at the Force Awakens exhibit at Star Wars Celebration. But let's continue past this point.
Can I say something about it?
Sure.
I want to talk more about the fact that Leia's getting the lightsaber, because I really hope that means that she actually gets to wield a lightsaber, because the expanded universe sort of dabbled with her being a Jedi, sometimes sort of on and off, not really, but I always thought the most logical sense, because Luke is obviously exhorted by Yoda to pass on what you have learned, and at the end of Return of the Jedi, who is the most likely, easiest candidate to learn about the Force? Leia. So I'm hoping, and now I'm assuming she will have some sort of leadership role in some regard, but I'm hoping that she's sort of a Jedi diplomat type of character, where she's got use of the Force, and maybe even has a lightsaber of her own, or maybe she receives this lightsaber and we see her wielding Anakin's old lightsaber, at some point during the movie. I think that would be really cool. I'm tired of her and characters like her, like Padme, getting relegated to just having blasters.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, I would love to see Leia with a lightsaber at some point as well. And I think it's possible. I think that that's entirely possible. So I don't know. Hopefully, we see that. Let's continue on here this Christmas, and here we go. We got I freeze framed on the absolute worst part of that shot. We got I keep missing them. They're going by too fast. We've got these X-wings. There we go. And these are our new X-wings. These are the T-70s with this new split wing design where we've got the front and the back wing here. You can see how it's sort of segmented back here. So the front part is obviously all connected, but then back here it goes up and down. So when they're closed, it's like one flat surface, which is a cool. It's an interesting new take on the design. Mm-hmm. I personally like T65s better, but I know that some people are becoming very fond of these. They really like these new engines on top and bottom that sort of creates one whole circle. This is very reminiscent of the original Ralph McQuarrie design in one of those. How many did he? I think he did like 5 or 7 initial pictures for the paintings for the pitch. When George Lucas was sort of taking the movie around to different places and pitching it. So this was sort of reminiscent of one of those very first X-Wing starfighter designs. But the more important thing, this is kind of extending what we've seen from the first teaser of the X-Wings flying over the water. But the more important thing is right here, and that is Poe Dameron, Oscar Isaac's character. And we saw him in this cockpit before, but in this version, he is about as enthusiastic as it gets. He is
just about as enthusiastic as we all were in the room at that point.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do just want to say something real quick about the X-Wings. I am of two minds concerning these X-Wings. One, I love the design. The design is great. It's a great natural progression from the classic X-Wing that we have. But my thing is, and this is just sort of a side, nerdy, real world sort of thing. It's like, it's, 30, 35 years after the events of Return of the Jedi, and you haven't developed a different starfighter other than the X-Wing? Or the TIE Fighter?
Yeah, see, I feel that way more about the TIE Fighter than the X-Wing, because at least the X-Wing, like, they changed the shape of the wings and everything, but with the TIE Fighter, it's like, it looks the exact same almost, except that the wings are white now. But, I mean, again, they're obviously trying to go for that classic trilogy feel and, bring back some of the fans who are kind of put off by the prequels and stuff. And they're going to be like, but guys, Stormtroopers and X-Wings and TIE Fighters, come watch it again.
Yeah, I think, I do think, I understand your point, Jason, but, and I think with the TIE Fighters in particular, I think what you're getting there is also, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record. The First Order are clearly obsessed with the Empire. And so the fact that they have stormtroopers and snowtroopers and TIE fighters and new Star Destroyers and everything, it's like things have been tweaked, but obviously to bring them 30 years forward, but they are very clearly trying to evoke something. Right, I'll talk about it a little bit more when we get a little bit further. Actually, I'm just going to leave it until then. Do we have anything else to say about Poe Dameron here and his awesome new X-wing pilot gear? We saw a much better version, a much better look at this costume during the panel. I guess I should have had those pictures ready so that we could sort of pop them up, but we've sort of seen the full costume, at least from the front, and I love it. I think it's a fantastic, much like the new Stormtrooper armor. It's a great sort of update and a new look for a very classic feel. Like it still looks like an X-wing starfighter pilot, but it's new. The helmet is definitely new. Like the helmet it feels all new to me, with the exception of, you've got your Rebel insignia here, you've got another one over here, and you've got the orange goggles. But other than that, I feel like it's a completely new helmet design.
Yeah, and I like that helmet a lot.
I think it's all looking fantastic. But even like the chest plate here has the same. It's got the same button layout, but it just updated, right? Like these two buttons are blue. You got the white ones in the center, and then the gray ones over here, and the black console in the middle. Like it's all very, very similar to the original X-wing fighter pilot, but just I don't know, just updated, a little bit more sleek, a little bit more modern, and just kind of like everything. I don't know. I really like it. I'm in love with this, and I'm thinking this might be my first Star Wars costume.
Oh, there you go.
Nice.
Yeah, and just one other thing I wanted to add, like it's unfortunate that we're having to go through this without the audio and skipping over that point, because also when the trailer begins and it's Luke quoting that scene from Return of the Jedi, the music is a little more slow and quiet, and kind of starting off on a lower note, and then at this point, actually right before this shot, when it says "This Christmas" and fades up from black with the X-Wings and everything, that's when it really swells up into that Force theme. And I don't think I've ever gotten chills before watching a trailer and seeing the words "This Christmas" on screen. But just when that came up when we were watching the trailer, I mean, I'm sure it had more to do with the music, but then also just kind of the reminder of the movie is coming out this year, and like as if I didn't love Christmas time enough already, this would be like the best one ever.
Christmas is taking a backseat to Star Wars this year.
I think they're going to become one and the same, because I get the feeling for a lot of us fans, like that's all we're going to be getting for Christmas is Star Wars stuff, or just tickets to go see the Force Awakens like once a week for the next several months.
I've been saying, and we'll talk about BB-8 when he rolls up a little bit later in this trailer, but they've sort of announced that Sphero is doing a BB-8 toy, and I think that toy is going to be this year's Tickle Me Elmo. It's going to be hard to get your hands on.
I want one so bad.
Everybody does. Everybody does. I've been talking to casual Star Wars fans and people who are not even Star Wars fans. People who just it's not that they don't like Star Wars, but they're not like us. They don't have a collection of Star Wars stuff. Everybody wants a BB-8. They better be prepared for the demand, because it's going to be crazy.
Of course, I've been telling all those people, like the casual fans, I'm like, you think you want one? You should have seen Mike and Jason when they rolled that thing out on stage for the first time.
You're lucky that we weren't in the actual theater. Sure that we would have rushed the stage and stolen BB-8.
Yep. I threatened to steal the one in the exhibit many times.
Yeah.
So, oh gosh.
Awesome. Okay, well let's move on to the next shot here. That was a really, really quick one. Let's get it again. Just a Kylo Ren slashing. We've got fire in the background, some stormtroopers. So there's something going on here.
Yeah, obviously somebody's biting the dust.
Yeah. So I think that this is the massacre. This is the whatever happens that we'll talk about Finn in a minute, but whatever it is that makes him decide that that it's not what he signed up for, that the First Order is not for him. I think that this is that scene. I think that's what this is evoking. And then we've got here we go. We've got our first looks in this trailer of we've got Rey here, Daisy Ridley. We got, of course, BB-8 rolling around in the background.
The best part of the shot.
Yeah. And we've got John Boyega as Finn, the stormtrooper on the run. So
there's a TIE fighter up in the left-hand corner.
Yep, right up here.
Yep.
They're being chased by TIE fighters. So I believe that this look on Daisy's face is, I'm really regretting helping you, Mr. Runaway Stormtrooper. And this is Runaway Stormtrooper going, they found me. I don't know how, but they found me. And BB-8 saying, I'm too old for this crap. While everything explodes in the background, we got some power generators back here and all sorts of stuff. Looks like like maybe this is Rey's camp or something of the sort. So lots of explosion. And here we go. This looks like a continuation of that scene that we were talking about just a second ago. With this massacre, we've got all the fire in the background. It looks like possibly soldiers, possibly hostages, possibly people being rounded up by the First Order. And we've got it's hard to tell, but this is a flame trooper. This is one of the flame troopers that we saw at the exhibit.
And that armor looks so cool. Exhibit.
It is fantastic.
Like seeing that suit of flame trooper armor up close was like, man, that's a really cool trooper design. Of course, I don't think it holds a candle to Kylo Ren's mask, because that is like one of my new favorite things in Star Wars, and we've seen all of like 10 seconds of it.
Yeah, but we got a nice detailed look at the mask and the costume.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
Also, now my theory about this shot in particular, even though it comes after that one we saw before, at least sort of the way I'm piecing this together in my mind, I think this is actually going to come before that other shot. I mean, it almost looks to me like maybe the stormtroopers are rounding some people up. Maybe there's like a rogue resistance fighter or somebody who like tries to sneak up behind Kylo Ren, so he turns around, force pushes him or whatever as he's about to be like stabbed in the back or something like that. And this, I'm guessing this will probably be like his big entrance scene too. It'll be like the first time we see him in the movie, and then he'll give some declaration, I am Kylo Ren and this is the First Order and this planet will burn or something like that, and then he ignites the lightsaber and kills the person.
Yeah. I think he's obviously up to no good here. I don't know that Kylo Ren will ever be up to any good in these movies, but very clearly, this is either at the beginning or the end of an intense action scene. But interesting that this is still the only lightsaber that we've seen ignited in The Force Awakens. So
true.
So who knows? Maybe he's actually being attacked by somebody who has a lightsaber as well. We'll have to wait and see. I'm sure we'll find out more about these things as we get closer to the release. But here we go. This is my favorite shot in the whole trailer. Obviously, the one that we started with, and this is our first look at the First Order, sort of, and their base of operations. So we've got, looks like a Death Star turbo laser over here. We've obviously got the wings of some TIE fighters over here. More laser turrets back up in here.
This is
regular stormtroopers. Looks like a flame trooper right there. More troopers up here. And most importantly, who is this guy? And I think this is Andy Serkis. I think this is the voice that we heard in the first trailer, in the first teaser, and this is clearly the leader of the First Order. I don't think this is Kylo Ren.
No, it's not Kylo Ren, because you can see that there's a face on top of him. So
just barely make that out.
Yeah, don't know.
Now, obviously, Kylo Ren has to have a face under that mask, and we might see that at some point during the movie.
No, he's just a mask.
I also... But I do agree that is, and I don't know for sure if it's Andy Serkis' character or whatever, but I don't think that's Kylo Ren back there.
It could be Max von Sydow.
It could, but Max von Sydow's pretty old, so I would expect some gray up top here, not black, because it looks like there's just a little tiny bit of black on the top.
Could be a hat.
That could be a hood, though.
Could be a hat, could be a hood, could be a lot of things, but I'm holding out that this is Andy Serkis, and this is his Emperor type character. And here we've got, I guess, half a look at the First Order logo, which is just kind of this circle with all these daggers in it, very reminiscent of the Imperial logo, just sort of in the way that it's laid out, especially with the diamond that is hexagon, same shape as a TIE fighter wing, and it's very, I mean, the imagery in this shot is sort of what I was alluding to before. This is very, feels a lot like it belongs in an Indiana Jones movie, because it looks a lot like some Nazis are getting ready to do something very evil. So my feeling is that this First Order is very much like a neo-Nazi type group in the Star Wars universe, being like a neo-empire. But that name First Order, I think they might predate the Sith. I think this guy right here and his objectives, his ideology might actually predate the Sith, and it might be something more dark and more evil, because the Sith obviously have been dealt with. So
do you think that also predates the Jedi then? Because the
possibly.
Jedi is the Jedi Order?
Possibly, yeah. Yeah, so because it is the First Order, right? So maybe we're thinking about something that is before Sith, before Jedi, before everything else, but obviously very, very wrapped up in Imperial trappings here.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's the very interesting part.
I mean, but Mike, when you were saying earlier that you think that these guys are a bunch of like Sith cultists or something that are trying to evoke the Sith and the Empire and everything. So do you think they've like completely just kind of come out of nowhere and just developed all this stuff that looks like the old Empire stuff? Because I do think Kylo Ren and maybe this Empire figure, I can definitely see them being like Sith cultists or something like that. But then also, I mean, at least to me, I think obviously these stormtroopers and TIE fighters and stuff, this is just like an Imperial remnant that's been taken over by some new figurehead. Sure. And it's like, okay, we're going to be, the First Order now and follow some new creed of, pre-Sith, whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll lay this out for you guys. I've talked about this with a couple other people, and my impression that I'm getting from this teaser, the previous teaser, and just sort of the verbiage and the attitude that we're getting from the promotional material so far, is that post Return of the Jedi, obviously the Rebellion tried to establish a new republic. And very much in keeping with the expanded universe, I think that they did. I think they returned to Coruscant. They established a new government there, but obviously the Rebellion was like, they were kind of on their heels. They were on the back foot going into the battle at Endor. So coming out of it, they would have been severely weakened, and I don't know that they were prepared to really retake the galaxy, as it were. I mean, we saw how much planning it took for Palpatine to pull that near perfect coup over the entire galaxy, and it required decades of planning and positioning. The entire Clone War was a ruse for putting his troops on as many planets as possible, so that when he flipped the switch and they became an empire, there were already garrisons on as many planets as he could manage. So what happens to the New Republic when they take power, and some planets don't want to join, and some planets think, much like the Separatists did, that centralized government, the way that it was working, was obviously too corrupt, because that's what led to the Empire. So in the midst of all of that turmoil and chaos, these guys come along, this guy comes along, grabs the Imperial remnant, which I think you're right, Kyle. I think that most of these guys think that they're rebuilding the Empire. I think that Finn thinks that he's rebuilding the Empire, and that they're trying to bring peace and order back to the galaxy. They've been trying for the last 3 decades to do that, and that's what the larger galaxy thinks the First Order is trying to accomplish. But obviously this guy right here and Kylo Ren have other ambitions, and they have
very other uses for
very, very Sith-like ambitions. So I think that's sort of our overall story of like galactic conflict that continues it being a Star War, as opposed to just a Star argument like the prequels were, but at least the first 2 prequels. But yeah, so I think that's what we're looking at here. I think that's why there's all of this sort of imperialness, and obviously the troopers have been upgraded severely. The TIE fighters not as much. They look very similar to the way that they looked in the classic trilogy, with the exception of these awesome. I think they're semi-transparent white panes on the TIE fighter wings. I think they look fantastic.
I think the Empire just went green and went with all solar-powered TIE fighters.
TIE fighters were always solar-powered. Pick up an EU book. Get yourself a guide to weapons and vehicles, Kyle. Jeez, man. Get with the program. Sure, you're like 20 years behind on that. But yeah, I think that's what we're looking at here. I think that's what the First Order is. So I think it's borrowing ideas from the expanded universe, but it's also sort of bringing in some of its own new ideas.
Yeah.
Let's move past this, and there we go. Beautiful shot of Daisy Ridley as Rey. We know.
Did you guys hear Carl swooning right there?
Yeah. I was just about to say it's a good thing Carl's not here, otherwise we'd be stuck on this shot.
Yes.
Or the next one of Daisy forever. So.
Yeah. You know what? I totally understand where Carl is coming from, because I'm very quickly falling in love with Rey as well. I think that she's going to be a fantastic character. If she is the one that Luke talks about when he says, I have the Force is strong in my family. My father has it. I have it. My sister has it, and you have that power too. I really hope he's talking to Daisy Ridley and not Finn. Not that I have anything against Finn. I just really want a lady Jedi in the Star Wars universe proper, especially in the Skywalker Solo lineage, and I do think that she is part of that lineage. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've been calling it since they released that very first photo of all the cast together, and she was sitting in between Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher, and I was like, I don't care what they call her, that's their daughter right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I still think
there's some more TIE fighters. This is an interesting scene because we've got one of those TIE fighters that this one's got the red markings on it. And it is blowing up the inside of what I'm guessing this is probably a Star Destroyer.
Probably.
Or some
because you can see on the right-hand side the engines of that shuttle that we see later.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I also like that TIE fighter's got a differently shaped cockpit.
Yeah.
And of course, there's that poor stormtrooper.
Yeah, this one. This is the one that's been made into a meme.
Be a stormtrooper, they said. It'll be fun, they said.
I think this is John Boyega piloting this TIE fighter. I think this is his daring escape from Imperial clutches, or First Order clutches.
It's entirely possible.
Blowing things up, because this is the next shot that we get. I'm going to try and go back on this one and freeze frame something very specific. Oh.
You're talking about the blood on the helmet?
Yeah. So there we go. Yeah. Right here.
Somebody's put a bloody handprint.
Sorry, you were saying something, Jason?
Yeah, I said somebody's put a nice big bloody handprint all over his pristine helmet. Gosh, the insensitivity of it all.
So I think this is what we're looking at. This is the moment. Whatever has happened previous to this, the massacre down on that planet. This is where he's very clearly, we can see he's had enough. This is not what he signed up for. This is not. So whether or not he's a resistance member and sort of undercover in that classic sort of Star Wars fashion. I'm sorry. I'm still getting over a little bit of con flu from Celebration that I brought back with me. Whether he's resistance or whether he's First Order and he's going to turn resistance, he's clearly not happy with what's happened. And that blood on the helmet, I think, says a lot. And I think that's where this is kind of where we'll find Finn at the beginning of the story. And there's that Star Destroyer we were talking about. So I think this is the Star Destroyer. You can kind of see up here how there could be. Normally, Star Destroyers don't have those sort of outward-facing bays. Normally, it's just sort of like they can launch from here. Mm-hmm. But this one, this split Star Destroyer, has got a very large deck. It's almost kind of like a battleship up here.
Oh yeah.
Very cool new design. Looks a lot bigger than your standard Star Destroyer. Not quite as big as, let's say, an Executor, but then we've got these little shuttles here, and this really, I'm guessing that this is probably Kylo Ren's ship.
I was about to say that.
Yeah. That's my guess on that one, is that's why that one is unique and different. But then the rest of these are sort of gun-ships or troop drop ships. And a good eye on catching that inside that bay. So very cool new designs. We almost missed it. I think possibly my other than BB-8, my new favorite character. Do we want to go into spoiler territory? It's a rumor at this point, so I think we can say this name. Possibly named Captain Phasma, which at first I was like, Captain Phasma, that sounds terrible. And then the more I say it and the more I look at this image and think about this potentially being Gwendolyn Christie, the more I think that this is Boba Fett done right. As we all know, Boba Fett's a punk. He goes out like a punk. He does basically nothing. He's a punk when he's a kid. He's a punk when he dies. He's got a couple of cool moments in Empire Strikes Back. Not all he's cracked up to be, folks.
He's cool, but he's the most overrated character in Star Wars.
Yes. Maybe right after Kitster.
I don't think Kitster's overrated by anybody.
I think there's a very specific group of fans who want to know where Kitster is, and it's a little overrated in my opinion. But I think Dave Filoni agrees with me. If his comments and panels have anything to say about it. And we all know how Kyle Newman feels about Ben Quadraneros. So but yeah, this is of all these new Stormtroopers, this is my favorite new design. Very reminiscent of Jango Fett, very reminiscent of some early concept art of Boba Fett, where he had the poncho over the white armor. But I think what we're getting here is a realization of that original concept of Boba Fett, where Boba was supposed to show up in all white armor, looking like some sort of special stormtrooper, and the backstory was supposed to be that he was an elite stormtrooper. Obviously, that ended up morphing into the idea that he is an exact duplicate of Jango Fett, who is the template for the clones. So that there's a bit of that story that's still intact, obviously, but this character, I think, looks a little bit more true to that original concept, which is that this is not a bounty hunter, this is not an independent faction character. This is a member of the First Order, but just that much more hardcore and badass. And I'm all about it. When this figure comes out as a 6-inch Black Series figure, I will be first in line to pick it up.
I'm picking that up right after my Kylo Ren, because I think he's still my favorite.
I think this design outdoes Kylo Ren, because I just love this new Stormtrooper helmet, and then you just chrome it out, and this shot in particular, with all the reflection and the nice like the reds and everything. If I ever get to meet J.J. Abrams in person, I'm just giving him a real big hug, because the visual tightness of this new movie is unparalleled. I think that Empire previously had the tightest visual aspect to it. Return of the Jedi is also very good, but the prequels are all over the map. They're just like, who knows what's going on half the time. The frames tend to be a little bit overpopulated, and the cameras aren't that dynamic, and there's all sorts of issues like that when it just comes to a cinematography viewpoint. And really just from that, I think one of the things that people have a hard time with, and obviously all three of us are prequel fans. I'm not saying that I don't love the prequels. I do. But they miss on some of the iconography that the original Star Wars films capture. And this trailer and this shot in particular, along with that other shot, my favorite shot from the trailer of the First Order, of all the stormtroopers, they just nail that iconic imagery. Like this, nothing is said. We know nothing about this character, yet in this few frames, as it fades in from one shot and out to another, we learn so much about who this character is. We don't know her plot in the story, and I'm going to continue to refer to this as Captain Phasma and her until I am told otherwise. I will continue to be hopeful.
You can, but, if you take a close look at the chest armor, you can tell it is a female.
I think that there is some indicators there, but this just evokes so much. It says so much about who Captain Phasma is and about what this character means in the larger story. And man, this red over here and just this awesome classic imagery, like the very old school Star Wars Empire imagery, it just all evokes threat. Like this is a character to fear. Much like Kylo Ren. I mean, I think that we get the same sort of feeling from Kylo Ren. But I just gel with this character so much. It's just, I love it. I love everything about it.
It's interesting.
I mean, oh no, go ahead, Jason.
Okay, it's interesting that you were talking about how you were referencing to the designs of Boba Fett when you were talking about this character. But it's the finished look here reminds me a lot of General Grievous. Especially with that cape. It's the cape that really does it to me. The dark cape with the red liner. But so it's interesting. It's a nice sort of mix there. But the cape plus you can see the hands there. Grabbing the front of the blaster reminds me the way the armor looks on the fingers. On the lower hand there reminds me just a bit of Grievous too. So it's an interesting juxtaposition, and obviously Stormtrooper and Boba Fett is more prevalent, but for some reason Grievous jumped out to me too when looking at this. So
that's fair. That's totally fair. I do. Yeah, I agree because this cape for sure is very reminiscent of Grievous. Also a little bit of Dooku. I mean, in the shape, not necessarily. I mean, Grievous had that awesome dual tone cape, right?
Mm-hmm.
It feels so Star Wars in a way that other stuff, let's say expanded universe stuff in particular, never really felt Star Wars to me. But this whole concept just feels so Star Wars, and I love it.
Yeah, and I think the I was just gonna say, like, the whole shiny look and the cape and everything, it sort of evokes a certain like royalty and eliteness to it as well. And so I'm thinking these might, I mean, if there's more than one of these Chrome Stormtroopers, or if it's just this Captain Phasma, which, by the way, I agree with you. I didn't really like that name at first, but the more I just hear people say it and the more I think about it, I'm like, yeah, I can get with that.
Yeah.
I think these are going to be like kind of like the new, almost like the Emperor's like red-robed Imperial Guards from Return of the Jedi, except they'll probably get a lot more action. Like, this doesn't look like the kind of person that just stands there guarding the Emperor the whole time. This looks like the person that stands there guarding the Emperor, and then someone comes back and says, our stormtroopers failed to catch the rebels, and then the guard's like, okay, I'll handle it. And you see that chrome armor walking down the hallway, and it's like, oh, crap.
Yeah. Awesome. And now we get to one of the most important frames in the entire trailer, because this actually, to me, this gives us a lot of story. This is clearly the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, which somehow I just realized.
Sorry?
I said, which somehow I just realized.
Oh, like, you didn't realize it before?
No, because every time, I mean, it's a quick shot. I know we're going through and freeze framing it here, but every time I'm just like, oh, it's like BB-8 peeking around a corner, and then, oh, there goes some TIE fighters or something. But just watching it paused here, and I looked at like the ladder in the background and kind of those pads on the walls and stuff, and I'm like, oh, that's the Falcon.
This is clearly the Gunwell, right? Up is one turret and down's another one. We got BB-8 on the Millennium Falcon, which is something that leads me to believe that Rey is in possession of the Falcon, and that that's the link to her being Leia and Han's daughter, and obviously we'll see it in a second. The Falcon being chased by those TIE fighters, which we know Rey and Finn were being chased by TIE fighters, and I think that's a perfect opportunity for a certain starfighter pilot to swoop in and save the day, and bring these characters back to the Resistance to join up with everybody else and go after the bad guys. And I think this may actually be the other side of another shot or another moment in the trailer that we'll see at the end, and we'll talk about that. There's that other shot of Rey, and now this is the shot of Finn, and this is Rey's hand, and this is the moment of let's be pals. Come with me if you want to live.
Come with me if you want to live. Yeah.
Yeah. And here we have the Falcon being chased into this. This is not the same Star Destroyer from before. This is another ship.
Yeah.
But being chased by the TIE fighter into this ship. Let me just go back to that TIE pilot. This TIE pilot, very interesting, because this, at first, because there's a lot of red reflection here, right? So at first you think that that's just reflection, it's just a really cool shot. But you'll actually notice, if you kind of watch it back, that this is actually painted right onto the helmet. And that this is what I would probably call out as a specific pilot. And I think this might be one of those characters that we haven't had revealed to us yet. Whether it's Donald Gleason, who a lot of people think that this could be him, or that he could be Kylo Ren or Adam Driver. So I think that those two characters, either one of them could be either one of these characters, and that they both kind of fit the bill for that. I lean a little bit more towards Donald Gleason being this pilot and being a sort of a high-ranking Imperial official or First Order official. To get out of the habit of saying Imperial, it's tough. But yeah.
I also just noticed he's almost got like an Iron Man arc reactor thing going on his chest there.
Yeah, that's true.
Because on all the new Stormtrooper outfits, they've got that kind of rectangular indent right there in the middle of the chest, but that's the only one we've seen glowing so far.
That could just be a reflection as well.
Yeah, it could be.
That shot's very lit, and it kind of moves across it as like a beam of light. Let's say this shaft of light moves across it. This, I love, is very reminiscent of Return of the Jedi.
Oh yeah,
and flying through the Death Star.
I do want to mention something of the shot outside of the crashed ship, where the TIE fighter is chasing the Falcon in, and we see the snap zoom that happens.
Sure, right there.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
That is totally a J.J. Abrams thing. Although, there's been one or two used in Star Wars before. We're, of course, most familiar with J.J. Abrams using those with the Star Trek films. So I just one of JJ's fingerprints on this.
That's for sure. I mean, there is a snap zoom in Attack of the Clones while they're aboard the gunship, and another one gets sort of like blown out of the sky, and they zoom in on the one that Anakin and Obi-Wan are in. But it is a much more modern technique, but Star Wars got to move forward a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it totally fits. I mean, like you said, Jason, it definitely is a, if you think about J.J. Abrams and some of the other movies he's done, it's like, yeah, that's a kind of classic J.J. move, but it doesn't really stick out like a sore thumb, like, of course, when he was first hired to direct the movie and everybody's like, oh, it's going to have lens flares out the wazoo, and I mean, I don't see a single one in this shot, and there's a lot of lights going on here.
Yeah.
But
no, it looks like Star Wars. It does not look like the new Star Trek movies.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's obviously some signature moments that you can kind of be like, oh, like it looks a little bit more, modern, and it looks like that JJ aesthetic. But yeah, it's definitely got its own flavor. And here's the thing: people talk about Star Wars having a specific style, and although I think that's true, and I think the prequels all have a very cohesive style, there are definitely signature things in the Star Wars universe when you're trying to make a Star Wars-esque film But if you actually look at A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, all three shot by different directors, and each one of them actually has a very different cinematic style. The first Star Wars is actually much more in wide shots and sort of almost like at that time what would have been a documentary style. Nowadays we think of documentary style as being handheld, but sort of that documentarian journalistic style of the camera not having any particular perspective, that the camera is an unbiased observer, and it's just sort of letting you see the story and taking it as you will. Empire, definitely of the original three, has the most subjective viewpoint, and it is because it's very dark and it's very cinematic. And then in Return of the Jedi, I think you start to hit on what people think of as the Star Wars style, and that is a melding of somewhere in between those two that I just mentioned, where there are definitely some more emotional moments. There are some tighter shots, but it is it really like sort of lives in the wide shot, and you see a lot of the movie. Whereas Empire is very tight, it's very confined, it's very claustrophobic, and for obvious reasons, because that's the mood of the film. But this trailer and the trailer that we got before is very much in that Return of the Jedi style, and a little bit of the prequel element in there, and a little bit of J.J. Abrams' flair. But I think it's good. I think it's all right for each movie to sort of have its own flavor and its own style, because each story should be individual and have its own character, just like A New Hope, Empire, and Jedi do. I think one of the biggest failings of the prequels is that they are all straight vanilla, and the three of them kind of feel the same. Revenge of the Sith maybe has a little bit of its own flavor, but not very much. Certainly not as much as people wanted it to. So they all kind of actually, because it's George Lucas calling the shots, quite literally calling the shots, you go back to that New Hope style of it being much more unbiased and sort of backed off of the emotional content. So I'm all for it being a little bit more emotional and having a little bit, evoking a little bit more, and that's I think that's definitely where this trailer is at, and I think that's what I've been talking about. The stuff that really hits me are those moments that are very subjective and have a lot of feeling in them, which is, like I said, something that I feel like is missing from the prequels. And I'll even say, like, the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, they kind of miss out on those emotional beats a little bit too much for me. I mean, Clone Wars has a few, but it is very much that New Hope style. But I think we got one thing left to talk about in here. I think there's one moment left in this trailer, and I think you guys know what that is. Are you guys ready? Are you prepared? Here it comes. And there it is. Han saying to Chewbacca, "Chewie, we're home." And what was the reaction at Star Wars Celebration, Jason? How did this go over in the room?
You couldn't hear anything because people were cheering so loud. It was everybody lost their minds. I'm pretty sure we set off some car alarms in the parking lot. There might have been shattered windows. No, it was electric. The energy was electric. Everybody was screaming and cheering. I know there were tears being shed. I had chills. It was amazing. And Han isn't my favorite character. I like Han, but I was always more of a Luke guy. But just still, having this there, Chewie, we're home. it said so much. You know, obviously it has some sort of context within the movie itself, but it was like Star Wars is back. You know,
so on that note, I'm just going to call out my co-host, the Chewbacca to my Han Solo, Matt the Crankster Krienke, just tweeted at us to say, was Han's "We're home" also JJ's read between the lines message to the fans about the future of the saga? And I think what you're saying, Jason, is absolutely 100% yes.
Yeah.
There's a reason why this line is. I mean, it's the only line actually like from the movie in the movie. The voiceover. I mean, I think the voiceover we'll see in the movie at some point in some fashion, but it might actually be. That might be a trailer moment, right?
Yeah, I don't think that voiceover is going to be in the movie personally.
Yeah. I think I'm about 50-50 on it. It may be, it may not be. But this is part of the movie, and this is sort of the first, line of dialogue that we've really got from the movie, and sort of not necessarily in context, but definitely synced up with the video and with a fantastic looking Chewbacca, much better than that terrible Episode 3 Chewbacca that I have nightmares about because it does not look like Chewie, and I choose to believe that it's not. And Han looking as Han Solo as ever. I mean, we've all been down this road before. That Crystal Skull trailer made me think that we were going back to Indy, and I still like the Crystal Skull, but it's definitely not as good as the rest of the Indiana Jones series. But this right here is Harrison Ford as Han Solo once again, and I don't know, it's like look at the corner of his mouth right there, just that half smile. And he's, I don't know, is Harrison Ford that good of an actor, or did JJ actually make him fall in love with the character of Han Solo? Because Harrison Ford famously never really liked the character of Han Solo. He always felt that it was too similar to other characters that he played and not as interesting. I mean, he's sort of infamous for his comments going into Return of the Jedi and sort of in Empire Strikes Back of saying, just kill Han Solo. He's got nothing left to do. He started off as a pirate, and he sort of, gets neutered as the story goes forward. Just kill him at the end of Empire Strikes Back, so that the rest of the characters have something to fight for, right? So that it ups the stakes. But we all needed Han Solo to come back in Return of the Jedi, and thank God he didn't die, because here he is in the flesh.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
30 some odd years later, ready to kick some butt, back on the Falcon with Chewbacca by his side, and this is the moment that I think says to all of us exactly what Han says, which is that we're home, that we're back. It's time for Star Wars again. And I don't know, I don't want to disrespect the prequels, but maybe real Star Wars. not prequel era Star Wars, which is its own thing, and it's very fun, and I'm making Jason very angry.
Yeah, but, yes you are.
But we're talking classic trilogy, X-Wings and TIE Fighters, the Millennium Falcon, and that gets me excited, lightsabers being a rarity and not being every third character. That's what I want to see. But Jason, you have something to say against that.
Oh, I don't know. Look, I love the X-Wings. I love the TIE Fighters. I'm really excited about this movie, and the trailer has me so hyped up for it. I'm just hoping it's not OT 2.0. I really hope it's not going to be the original trilogy again.
Yeah, sure.
Because there's so much here. There's a lot of new stuff.
Yeah.
But there's enough of the old stuff that's back in there that I'm just like, I want it to be different enough to warrant it being made.
Sure.
So it's, and obviously I am totally of the camp that prequel Star Wars is Star Wars.
Yeah.
And is on the same level as the rest of it. You know, and I know I'm probably one of 3 people in the entire world, me, George Lucas, and some random person in Timbuktu, who thinks that way. But, you know, I'm really excited about this. Like I said, I'm just hoping we don't get a rehash of 4, 5, and 6 again. Of the greatest hits of the OT. So.
I'm gonna flip back to this screen and see how you feel about that, because I can't help but get giddy and excited when I see Han Solo and Chewbacca on the Millennium Falcon again, and his new jacket, and there's his blaster, and Chewie's got the bowcaster, and it's got little code cylinders over here. What's that all about? What's all this? It's just he looks like Han Solo and Indiana Jones at the same time, and I'm so excited about it, and he looks so happy to be back, and that's the thing. I never thought we'd get to see this again. You know, like I was just under the impression that Han Solo was something that happened, and if we did ever get to see him again, it would just be in the worst way possible, like in Episode 3, or on Clone Wars, or in Star Wars Rebels, and not that I think Rebels could possibly do it justice because of the era that it's in, as long as he's got the Falcon and Chewie's by his side. But I did not want to see little kid Han Solo in Episode 3, and I'm thankful that we didn't see that. He's still in the art book, and that just brings very scary thoughts to my brain about what could have been, and I'm thankful that we didn't get that. But this is what we want. This is everything that I've ever hoped and dreamed for. But Kyle, what's your feelings?
Yeah, you know, I guess I'm a little bit between the two of you guys on that. Because, I mean, I love the prequels as well, and I love the original trilogy. I love the classic, you know, X-Wings and TIE Fighters and Luke and Han and Chewie and all that kind of stuff. But I guess because I've been into that since, you know, I was like 4 years old, I mean, sometimes it feels a little bit, I don't want to say old, like I never get tired of watching those movies, but when they go back to it and like add new stories in there, I'm like, yeah, okay, we've been doing that for like 30 years, you know. And so like I love the prequels and the Clone Wars and how that opened up like so many new stories and worlds and battles and everything. And even before The Force Awakens, I kind of felt this way about Star Wars Rebels. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be that excited to like watch a whole series about stormtroopers and TIE fighters again. But then just watching this show, sometimes I'm like, man, I forget how much I miss this stuff, and like I really do love this, you know, this old school classic era of Star Wars. And so I kind of feel the same way about this. Like I agree with you, Jason. There is a little part of me that's like, you know, whenever someone asks me, oh, you know, do you think Disney's going to mess up the new Star Wars, or, you know, are they going to do a good job with it or whatever? Like the one small trepidation that I have is I'm like, I just hope they're not trying to make it too similar to the original trilogy, because like they're bringing back the original cast. They've got the Millennium Falcon, they've got new X-Wings and stuff. Like I think that's good enough. But you know, when you see like the X-Wings and the TIE Fighters and the Stormtroopers and stuff, I'm like, okay, that's all cool, but I do hope there's a little bit of variation to it. But I think from what we've seen so far, I think for me, at least the new characters are probably what's gonna do it for me as far as making it feel different enough, because we've never seen, you know, like you were saying, Mike, we've never had a lead female Jedi before, and I'm pretty sure that Rey is the one that Luke's talking to in that dialogue, so I think we'll get to see her, you know, become sort of the new Jedi hero of this trilogy. We've never seen you know, a stormtrooper turned against the Empire in Finn, and you know, seeing what that's going to be like. I mean, I love Poe Dameron and his enthusiasm and everything. BB-8, obviously, everybody's already in love with. Kylo Ren, I keep going back to, like, I love that character design, and I can't wait to find out more about this villain. Also, as a huge Knights of the Old Republic fan, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention how much that mask looks like Darth Revan. And if it turns out in the movie that is Darth Revan's mask, even though it doesn't look exactly like how I'm used to it from the EU, I'm still just going to be like the happiest person on the planet. But you know, so you know, I'm all excited about the new stuff, but then just seeing this shot at the end of the trailer with Han and Chewie, it's like, again, just part of me just sort of got all warm and fuzzy and was like, man, I forgot how much I miss these guys. And you know, like you said, Jason, I mean, Han's not necessarily my favorite character either. I mean, I love Han. but I was more of a Luke guy growing up too. Also, as I've gotten older, probably since like late teens, and I realized that I'm taller than like 99.9% of the population of planet Earth, being 6'8", I've developed a real personal bond with Chewbacca, just because if I were anything in Star Wars, I'd be a Wookiee. But you know, not that either of those two characters are particularly my absolute favorite, but just seeing the two of them together on the Millennium Falcon, it's like I don't know if any other combination of characters in a particular setting can evoke just that much nostalgia and sort of, like I said, the warm fuzzies of being back in the confines of like the familiar Star Wars that we all love. So, I mean, they literally could not have picked a better way to end this trailer with that scene and those characters and that particular line of dialogue where he says, "Chewie, we're home." And I love too how it's at the end of like the action shot with the Falcon and everything. It fades to black. And again, when I was kind of reliving this, watching that video on YouTube where you can hear the crowd reaction in the background and everything, it fades to black and it's just dead silent. Like everybody in the room is just waiting to see, like, because we all know at this point the trailer's just about over, but there's going to be like one more surprise reveal at the end here before the end logo comes up. Yeah. And you just hear that line, "Chewie," and like you kind of know it's Han, but at the same time, like in the heat of the moment,
all the air got sucked out of the room though, because everyone
right. It's like you pretty much know it's Chewie, but at the same time, because you can't, or you know it's Han talking, but because you can't see him, because you've just got that adrenaline pumping, and we want to see all this new stuff, you're kind of like, who said that? What's going on? And then you actually see them, and it's like, oh my gosh! But of course, like it's funny because everybody still waited to hear the line, like, "We're home," and then just right at the end of that shot, once our brains had finished processing the amazeballs that we had just seen, then everybody just lost it. And I mean, people were cheering like all throughout the trailer, and it was loud and everything, but then at the very end there, it was like twice as loud as it had ever been through the previous 2 minutes. So
and then they were immediately like, "You want to watch it again?"
And we all said no.
I don't know that anybody said anything. I think it was just like a deafening roar, and it was like, I think that's a yes. So
I had jelly legs for like half an hour after that.
Yeah. So there it is, December in Real D, 3D, and IMAX 3D. So Star Wars in 3D. We won't have to wait for a re-release. We won't have to go all the way to California for Star Wars Celebration to see it in 3D.
Which we didn't make it in for 2 or 3. I'm very disappointed.
No. Yeah.
Relax. It's gonna get its release. They just got to get these out of the way.
Or it would have made a great, run up though. Just
I think they might though. Like, you know how nowadays when Age of Ultron comes out, there are movie theaters that you can get in the theater like Thursday afternoon. Yeah. Or I guess Wednesday afternoon or something,
and watch a full 24 hours,
36 hour Marvel movie marathon. Yeah. And so, I mean, if there's anything I would do that for, it would be Star Wars. Like, I like the Avengers movies, and I don't like them enough to want to sit in a movie theater for 12 hours and watch a whole bunch of them. But if they release all 6 Star Wars movies in theaters again leading up to Episode 7, I will definitely marathon that, and I could definitely see them screening Episodes 1 through 3 in 3D as part of that, especially since, you're going to be getting the 3D glasses to see Force Awakens anyways.
Sure. I mean, I think that it was the smartest decision they could have made. I know that, again, I'm a prequel fan, you guys are prequel fans, but the majority of the old GP, the general public, they are not prequel fans. And when you mention the prequels, they hate Star Wars again for 5 minutes. And I think it was a very smart business decision to not remind people of the prequels and to do everything that you could to go like, no, original trilogy. I mean, like, in all of those digital release trailers and everything, it was like, yeah, the prequels are definitely in there as well, but they were very focused on the original trilogy. And obviously, Rebels is a jump forward towards the original trilogy era. and it just feels like they canceled a bunch of stuff, a bunch of games and that sort of thing that would have been more prequel era stuff, taking place on Coruscant and that sort of thing. And it was for very good reasons, because if we want Star Wars to continue, this movie has to open big, and it has to do what Disney wants it to do. And that might not be, it's a bitter pill to swallow for hardcore Star Wars fans who love the whole saga, but it is the truth, right? We got to take our medicine, and our medicine in this instance is focus on the original trilogy, forget about the prequels. There will be time to think about the prequels once Star Wars is back, right? And so I think that once The Force Awakens opens and it shatters box office records, and it is the biggest movie since Jesus, that at that point they'll be able to say, by the way, coming in May or whatever, in a few months, you're going to be able to pick up episodes 1, 2, and 3 in 3D. And soon after that, they'll be like, by the way, we finished 4, 5, and 6 in 3D as well. So, here's, we all just bought Blu-rays. We're all going to need to buy Blu-rays again, because we're going to need to buy another saga set that's got room for 7, 8, and 9 in it. Jurassic Park is releasing a 4-disc set that is a disc short. And it comes out in May. It comes out in a couple of weeks. And it has Jurassic Park 1, The Lost World, and Jurassic Park 3. And then it's got a slipcase for Jurassic World, so that when you get Jurassic World, you just pop it out of the case that it came in, and you stick it in the box set so that it's on your shelf with the other 3 movies where it belongs.
Wow. See, that's clever.
And I think that if Lucasfilm is smart, and if Kathleen Kennedy is smart, and if everything that we saw at Star Wars Celebration is an indicator, she's a very, very smart cookie, we are going to be seeing the exact same thing for the complete saga in 3D, because this movie's being released, here we go, right here, in 3D, in IMAX 3D and RealD 3D. So that means that they're going to want to release a complete saga set in 3D, and I won't be surprised if by this time next year we're all ponying up the $100 and some odd again for these movies in 3D. And so
except I still only know 2 people that have 3D TVs.
I have a 3D TV, so you can add me to that list. But and Star Wars is probably about the only thing that I would bother breaking out the 3D glasses for. So it's coming. It's on its way. It's just not the opportune moment to put that out. So I think that Anakin Skywalker is a model to look at when he said to Obi-Wan, maybe patience is the best course of action, and I think that's where we're at. But The Force Awakens coming December 2015. That is this year. Here, I'm coming back. We're all done watching the trailer. It took us an hour and a half to break down that trailer and talk about it for good reason. Because there's a lot in that trailer. There's a lot to break down. I got my Star Wars shirt on. I see Kyle has got
Rebels Podcast.
His Rebels Podcast shirt on. Jason, what are you repping?
Oh, I'm repping Star Wars.
Jason's repping the Star Wars. We are all super excited. I have not been this excited about Star Wars since probably the lead up to Attack of the Clones. I was pretty excited about Revenge of the Sith, but I think I was more excited about the lead up to Attack of the Clones, and maybe even more so about the Phantom Menace, if you can believe that, because the Phantom Menace we we all thought was going to be what we currently think this movie's going to be. And who knows, maybe we're in for another Phantom Menace. But I get a feeling. I get a good feeling.
I think they've learned their lesson.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, the Phantom Menace wasn't going to live up to anybody's expectations.
No,
so.
that is true. That is true.
Well, you could say the same about this movie, and it might not live up to our expectations, but I mean, my sort of pipe dream, huge expectation is that this movie is just gonna, completely blow us all away. That maybe Anthony Daniels wasn't completely off his rocker when he said this is going to be the best Star Wars movie yet, and it's going to be even better than Empire. But I think my realistic expectation is that it's going to just fall somewhere between the six for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I could probably say that Phantom Menace is probably my least favorite Star Wars movie. So as long as it's better than Phantom Menace and it doesn't have to be as good as Empire Strikes Back, I'll be happy. But
well, for me, it's really easy for me to tell you my favorite Star Wars movies in order because it's just the reverse. It's 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I have a very good feeling that order is going to be maintained, and that 7 is going to become my favorite Star Wars film. Because I love that first Star Trek. The second one is very problematic for a lot of reasons, but that first Star Trek movie is a solid movie that is very fun. Sure, there's some logic flaws in it, but it's Star Trek, so of course there's logic flaws in it. There's logic flaws in all of Star Trek. That's not the point of Star Trek. But as we saw in that, J.J. Abrams made Star Trek way more like Star Wars than it ever was before. And it was almost like it was his trial run, and he worked out those muscles, and then he got handed the keys to the kingdom now, and he gets to establish the new Star Wars. And I think he's going to do a good job of it. I have a lot of confidence in JJ, especially the way that he talks about it, the way that he talked about taking on that huge responsibility, and I think that he's got the right respect for it. He's got the right reverence for it, but he's also a very capable, very talented filmmaker. So I think when you put all those things together, and you think about the crew that they brought in to write this movie, I think it's safe to say that it's going to be a good movie. It's definitely going to be better than Phantom Menace. It's not better than Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. I think that's pretty safe.
I guess that should be my what I should hope for. Better than both of those. Which, again, I think it will.
No, and I'm sitting here.
In Revenge of the Sith territory, I think we'll all be happy. But
as long as Finn doesn't quit the Empire and join up with the Resistance because he doesn't like sand.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't want to be stuck on Jakku because this stuff is coarse and rough and irritating and gets everywhere.
No.
Okay. Final thoughts. We're gonna wrap it up a little bit early, but we've been talking for a while. I feel like I've been talking for a while at least. Jason, final thoughts on the Force Awakens teaser trailer number 2.
All right. I know I sounded a little bit like little trepidatious there for a second there. I am super excited though for this movie. I'm so excited. Just in the back of my mind, those little things are just running, but for the most part, I ignore them. The trailer was amazing, although I still think my most favorite moment of seeing the trailer that day at the panel was when BB-8 rolled out on stage, and not the trailer itself. The trailer itself is amazing, but seeing BB-8 roll out on stage and get into an argument with R2-D2 was the best ever. I think I died. But no, the trailer has me super excited, and for probably the most part, 99.9% of my being, super confident with where it's going. Like I said, I've got those. I just want to make sure we're not rehashing the original trilogy again, because we have the original trilogy and we don't need to do it again. This is a sequel trilogy, and it needs to follow that, but be something all its own. I think it will be. I'm hopeful it will be. I'm also trying to temper my expectations so I don't get, the big Phantom Menace fallout that people suffered back in '99. So I didn't, because I was 7 and didn't understand what was going on. But I know most people still regret that. And I don't want to regret this. So
a little bit of caution didn't never hurt anybody. So that's a good place to be at. Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, like both you guys said, I'm super excited for this. I don't know that I've ever watched a video on YouTube in a single week as many times as I've watched this trailer. But between rewatching the trailer itself and watching all the reaction videos with like the priest and the babies and all the other hilarious people that are just freaking out about this as much as we are, so super excited. And like you were saying, Mike, I think J.J. Abrams is going to do a really great job. Because for me, I mean, when I watched I still remember watching the original Star Trek, or not the original, obviously, but his first Star Trek movie back in 2009 in the theater, that some friends of mine had dragged me to go to, because I was not at all a Star Trek fan, and in protest, I wore a Star Wars shirt to the midnight screening of Star Trek that we went to. But that was around the time when Hollywood started really making, like, all their big blockbusters were either like sequels of dormant franchises or reboots of big action movies from the 80s and stuff like that. And so as I'm watching this Star Trek movie and just seeing like the visuals and the space battles and everything, I'm like, man, not that I would ever want someone to reboot Star Wars or come along and like make more sequels or something like that, but if they ever did, this guy should direct it, because this is really good. And I love this kind of sci-fi action and everything. Like I would bet that he could handle Star Wars pretty well. Never in my wildest dreams thinking that 4 years later it would actually be happening. So yeah, I definitely think they picked the right guy for the job. And obviously we've only seen like 3.5 minutes of the movie so far, just from these teasers. We still don't really know anything about
Not even. There's so much black in these trailers.
Yeah, well, yeah, that too.
Maybe 2 minutes at most.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and then we still don't really know anything about the plot, other aside from some of the rumors and stuff that we've heard. But as far as official material, it's just been, here's some emotional music and some voiceover and some cool shots of stuff, and it's just got us all super excited. And I do really hope it lives up to the hype. I think for me, there's also a tiny part of me that shares some of that same trepidation, that like I hope this isn't just a rehash of the original trilogy, but then I think at least the thing that I have to get over that is, even if this one is a rehash of the original trilogy, I think we'll move on from that in 8 and 9, and I think 7, if it does have that problem, I think it's just going to be to try to bring general audiences back to Star Wars. And really evoke kind of that classic feel that they love, and then 8 and 9 will be able to move away from that a little bit more with the new characters and stuff. But yeah, I mean, man, it's just, I love this trailer. This might be my favorite movie trailer of all time, and it was just so much fun being there, seeing it shown for the first time in a room with 2,000 people just absolutely losing their minds. And yeah, like you said, Mike, like if the initial reaction from just everybody online and stuff is any indication, this movie is just going to be ginormous when it comes out. I mean, we know it's going to make a crap load of money anyways because it's Star Wars, but
yeah.
I can count on one finger the number of people I know who weren't impressed by this trailer. And that's not even like people that I know personally. That's also just, friends on Facebook that I don't even talk to that much. It's, reading comments on YouTube and on websites and stuff like that. I mean, everybody is like, oh my gosh, this was amazing, and I cried, and I screamed, and I jumped out of my seat, and I can't wait till December. So, yeah, I mean, like we were saying, it's like Star Wars is back, and just cannot wait for December 18th. Can't come fast enough.
Awesome. I guess that just leaves me. This is probably one of my favorite trailers of all time. I think it is probably the best, like the most expertly crafted teaser of all time. It does everything it's supposed to do as a teaser, which is it shows us new characters, old characters, locations, ships, all of the sort of things that we want to see as Star Wars fans, the things that we're excited about, but it reveals none of the story. Everything that we talked about tonight that could possibly be story is quite simply speculation. We know a handful of things. We know that Finn is a stormtrooper and he's on the run. We know that Poe Dameron is as he calls it himself, the best starfighter pilot in the galaxy, or the best pilot in the galaxy, and that's probably going to be contested by Han Solo, but and that he's a resistance fighter and he's being sent by Princess Leia on a mission. We know that Rey is a scavenger. We know nothing about her character, and I think that there's a reason why we know nothing about her. We know nothing about the bad guys officially, other than that Kylo Ren is not a nice person, and that the stormtroopers are up to no good. And we know that Han Solo does not have the Falcon, and that he will come back to the Falcon at some point in the movie. That's all we know. That's it. Like, everything else is speculation. Everything else is hope and fear and all of those other emotions that we carry with us into Star Wars. So whenever people ask me what, and I get this question a lot being the host of several podcasts about TV shows, whenever people ask me what I want to see, what I'm most excited about next, my answer is always the stock answer of I'm excited for the things that I don't know are coming, the things that are surprises. And as it stands right now, basically everything's going to be a surprise going into this movie. I mean, we've still got a lot of time. There's a lot of days between now and then. And as we get closer to September, when the merchandise starts to roll out, we will get closer to details and we'll start to learn a lot more. And Hasbro will invariably tell us way more than we want to know about a lot of different things, and will accidentally reveal plot points that we don't want to hear. And somebody's going to put a track listing on a CD that tells us that Qui-Gon dies by the end of the movie. And there will be moments, and we're gonna learn more before we make it to the finish line. But at least for now, we get to sort of revel in this space of just wild speculation, fueled by these very brief images, a minute and 59 seconds worth of awesome Star Wars imagery. And that's what I'm the most excited about. I love this part of being a Star Wars fan. Seeing the movie is always fun. I can't wait for the movie. I can't wait for the action figures. But this part where we sit and we speculate and we talk about, like, oh, what's that and where's this going and how cool is that going to be? I mean, I can remember episode 1 when that trailer came out, sitting. My friend Owen and I downloaded it onto his computer. It was in QuickTime format, and it was about like this big on the screen, and we played it about 10 million times. And I can remember distinctly getting to that point where the Gungans are coming out of the swamp on the Kadu, and there's like the big feathers on the back of the Kadu, or the horse dinosaurs that they have, two-legged horse dinosaurs, and the feathers are kind of like swaying back and forth as they slowly come out of the swamp, and I was just like, oh man, that is going to be the coolest part of the movie. That is literally the scene, and it means nothing, and it's not an indicator of the overall tone of the film, and like so my moment in this trailer, the two moments that I love of the stormtroopers turning and then Captain Phasma slow-mo walking towards the camera. Captain Phasma could end up being the Jar Jar Binks of this movie. I don't know. You don't know. There's nothing at this point in time that says that she's not. So this is the point where it's all possibility. It's all...
If the Jar Jar Binks of this movie is wearing that cool of a suit of armor, I think we're in pretty good shape.
In pretty good shape, yeah. There's pretty good chance that she's not the Jar Jar Binks of this movie, but the point being that everything right now is an unknown variable, and we have very little of the equation. and a lot of time between now and then to worry about it and to get excited about it, to get our hopes up and to have our hopes dashed. So that's what I'm excited about. That's what I'm looking forward to. I can't wait. And this is not the last that you'll hear of this from us at ThunderQuack. I'm sure that on all of our various Star Wars podcasts, whether it's the Rebels podcast, whether it's Star Wars The Saga Continues, or Jason, you guys over on the Wampa's Lair talking about Star Wars, there's going to be a lot of conversation about The Force Awakens between now and then. I mean, we haven't even mentioned Rogue One, which, by the way, our last roundtable was all about Rogue One, and we were totally wrong.
Yep.
Nothing that we want to see is going to happen in that movie. It's a completely different thing. But you know what? I was in the theater, and I saw that teaser trailer, and you guys have a lot of reason to be excited, because that's going to be an awesome movie, too. So tons of Star Wars stuff coming down the pipe. Tons of other stuff that we're going to talk about in the future on the ThunderQuack Patreon roundtable. I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. May's roundtable is going to be all about Daredevil. So if you are not watching if you haven't watched all of Daredevil yet, if you've been slacking on it and you haven't marathoned it like I did, you need to get on that and you need to watch it. I'm talking to the viewers and our listeners right now, not necessarily to you two, but you two as well.
I was like, I know you're talking to me.
I haven't even started.
Man, you got to get into that. I know you got finals and stuff like that. You got to finish with school. The second you're done with school, Jason, you watch Daredevil. Do it. I'm pointing at you. I'm looking at you on the screen and I'm pointing at you.
Okay.
I watched the first episode and I started the second one last night and got about halfway through it.
Kyle, we don't have time to talk Daredevil right now. We're talking Daredevil next month. So
I was just going to say I stopped and started watching Clone Wars instead. But
tune in next month. We're going to talk about Daredevil with some of our panelists. And I'm excited about that. I might not be on that one. I'm going to do my best to not be on that roundtable, and everybody else can talk. And I'm just going to watch, and I'll just be in the comments typing away, going, "Oh, you guys are totally wrong with Daredevil. It's the greatest television show ever." But we've got that coming up, and we've got other exciting stuff in the future, and we've got announcements coming soon. Do you want to make an announcement, Jason?
Sure. Why not?
Here, wait a second. I got to flip the camera to you. Go ahead. Make your announcement.
All right. My announcement is, as of today, I have been in contact with the co-host of Talking Time Lords. That has been decided. It's a gentleman by the name of Paul Gann, who is a listener to the Wampus Lair. Not Paul McGann, the Eighth Doctor, Paul Gann from Mississippi. But yes, we will be blasting that all over social media tomorrow. And so if you're listening to this now, you got a sneak peek on the big special announcement. So congratulations.
Awesome. Cool. Well, you heard it here first. So Talking Time Lords moving forward, coming soon to a time and relative dimension in space near you. I very excited about Talking Time Lords. I don't like Doctor Who, but I know that a lot of other people do, so I'm really excited to bring that to help bring that to everybody. But we're all done for tonight. So thank you guys. Thank you very much, Kyle and Jason, for joining me this evening to talk about The Force Awakens teaser trailer number 2. And I of course, thank you to everybody who watched live, everybody who's watching this after the fact, everybody who's been subscribing. I asked in the latest episode of Quiver for people to go in there and subscribe, because we need to hit 500 so that I can change the URL to youtube.com/ThunderQuack. So thank you to everybody who's been following through on that and subscribing and just finding us on YouTube and joining us for these roundtables. We really appreciate it. And of course, you can find out all about our other great podcasts at ThunderQuack.com, as well as following us on Facebook at facebook.com/ThunderQuack, following us on Twitter, ThunderQuackNet, on Twitter, and here on YouTube, subscribing on YouTube. So thank you for that. And if you like what you saw, and you want to see more of this sort of awesome stuff, and you want to hear more awesome podcasts, then I implore you to head over to patreon.com/ThunderQuack and kick in a couple of bucks. Every dollar helps, and it helps us bring awesome content like this to you. And we're happy to bring it to you guys. So we're very appreciative of all of our supporters over there at Patreon, at patreon.com/ThunderQuack. That does it for us this month on the Patreon Roundtable. We hope to see you guys next month, and if not, in between now and then, check out some of our awesome podcasts. So that's it. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Jason, and good night, everybody.
Good night.